Thank you all for answering those questions. So we have about 8 or 9 minutes left. I would like to pose the last question as a final wrap-up to each of you. And I'm going to ask, because we're all, especially particularly Detroiters, having been, and I don't like to say a product of my environment, I like to say productive despite my environment.
Yes, I shall.
So in that mindset, how do you self-care in order that you show up in a way that is holistic when you are working with and nurturing young people, adults, or whomever you work with in your capacity of work? What is it that you do as an individual so that you show up in a holistic manner when you are posed with the same outside forces that the individuals you're trying to help are faced with? Who wants to tackle that first?
Anybody that know me, what you see is what you get. I'm high. When I'm hurting, I'm hurting. When I'm happy, I'm happy. And I think that's the important thing that we tend not to do with folks that we organize. We don't want to be transparent. We want to hide our ugliness and kind of appear as if we always are. And so, whether it's on Facebook page or just the period. And so when folks come to me and they want to ask me this and that, if I can do it, I can do it. If I can't, I can't. And if I'm going through this, I'm going through this. Some people, when I see you, if I may cuss, I didn't know you cuss. Yeah, I cuss. I get angry, and I go through those emotions, but also with having a community allows you to deal with those things. Allows people that you trust, people that have your best interest, that people that can challenge you, that you can sit down and you can pour your heart out, that knows your heart. Because we all coming from our place of heart, from our heart, but we're afraid that person we're gonna give our heart to, how they gonna be with it. So it makes us our exterior that much more tougher, that much more brutal in our relationship with each other. So that even playing field is just being honest, man. Being transparent of who we are and what we do and what we're capable of. And that's the biggest impact that it can have on other people. I mean, that's refreshing to myself in regard to some days when I want to do a lot of things I can't. Sometimes I may just cry. I may get frustrated, and when I do finally talk to Sterling after months, I know what I'm going to get from him. He know what he's going to get from me. I know those individuals exist in my world that keeps me focused.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. You just got to be yourself. I always show up black. I always show up black. And I always show up in a way to let the youth know that I love them. And that I can be wrong. I show up vulnerable. Like you self said, as a human being, we make mistakes. Sometimes I'll do things that might not be appropriate because I'm still a wild child. And sometimes I do things that's very appropriate. Once I see that they are doing stuff that sounds cold, I check them. I don't give them an opportunity to think that that's okay. And I'm still one of them blacks that I came out of that era. I'm black and I'm proud. When we loved who we were, when we loved our hair, when we loved being black, when we started talking about it was okay and good to be black. So I'm an old throwback from when blacks loved being black and loved blacks. And so I'm encouraging blacks to get back to black in every opportunity that I can. Whether it be before the Common Council, whether it be at a rally in California, whether it be at a speak out in Ohio, I'm always encouraging blacks to be black and to quit this self-hatred that we have for one another that was embedded in us, instilled in us, that we have to work very, very hard to eliminate. And I'm going to tell you, when black people are around white people, especially in large groups, you walk into a room, you may be the only black, or maybe one other black person there. We are always on guard. I want you to understand how uncomfortable we feel when we walk into a room with white people. Well, let me speak for myself, because I'm not going to put that on all black people. I never feel comfortable around white people when it's more white people than black people. I always feel threatened and always feel ungodly because of the way that we've been treated and the way that we have had to deal in situations where Chastity was talking about where white people have privilege. And you need to understand that. I heard one of my white friends say, you know, Sandra, I never ever thought about that black people may feel a different way when they come in the room with a lot of white people. I said, well, I'm just telling you how I feel. I never feel comfortable. Never ever feel comfortable until once I get to know them. Once I get to know who that person is, I don't feel that anymore. That's not a problem. That doesn't happen anymore once I get to know who they are. Which goes back to we all in this thing together, we human beings. We human beings. And until we really understand that we got to work together against those who are perpetrating everything that they can through this system that we're under. And I don't know, and I'm going to turn the mic over to my brother over here, but we're undergoing a system change. And that is a big deal. That's why all these things that you see happening in all these urban cities and all of this stuff that's being projected against the people is because they are changing the system on us. We better get together.
Wow. Organizer resilience. Wow, Tawana, thank you. You know, people, when you're around a lot of elders, being Gen X, and the baby boomers party. They had Woodstock, they went around the country, they rocked loincloths, they like grew their hair long. There's this notion of rebellion, having a rebellious spirit, and standing in the place of the questioning on what are we doing? What are we doing? And not just going along for the okie doke. So part of my resilience is I never hold a rope too tight because I don't want rope burn. So there's a certain amount of fluidity in organizing that you have to attend to. You have to be able to look and see the emergent and don't kill it. You know, smother it. Sometimes you get close and you don't even know what you're looking at. So these moments of the work of organizing, the love of organizing, where the heart is at, has to involve some levels of reflection. So part of my resilience is I unpack what I'm doing with some folk. And they get to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And because you never want to be in the echo chamber. You never want to just be lost in your own thoughts. You want to have the critical reflection of somebody else that's trusted, that can help you see your work from their perspective, that informs the work and informs your own brilliance. Laughter. We organizers are some grim people. We get in the rooms and fight. We bring fight to a fight. So we have to begin to have laughter just to lower our blood pressure. Because half of us probably walking around with undiagnosed high blood pressure. Because we already in the fight to destroy the system that's choking and killing the planet and us. We already trying to battle the internal dynamics of our own idiosyncrasies. But one thing, a good tool is laughter. So every now and then, go to see a comedian, fall out laughing, hang out with some children that's cracking some jokes, fall out laughing. Laughter releases tension. Laughter is reparative, it restores blood pressure. And lastly, we have to practice radical self-acceptance. Some of the things that we do is we beat up on ourselves too much. We in Detroit got an undoing racism in the food system, and so a lot of white people in there got profound guilt. They carrying the whole burden of the transatlantic slave trade, genocide, everything on their shoulder. When they get in the room, they be hunched over. And I'm like, lighten up a little bit. The ability for us to be resilient and organizing has to be our ability to touch a problem, deal with it, transform it, but not have it kill us. Because we have to be relentless in these fights.
Or kill it.
Or kill it. Thank you. And I hate to use that word kill for my vegan friends because we try not to use language that's violent. because some of our language is real violent, but definitely laughter, definitely some reflection, definitely radical self-acceptance, and definitely don't hold the rope too tight, because we don't need no more organizers rope burn. We need us resilient.
Yeah. What is it? Yeah, I feel it on the laughter. To be real with you, like, while all that's going on, I'm having a good time. Right? I think too, like, that points to the creative spirit. It's like, you know, oh my God, they took our paints, they took our brushes, they took our canvas, and it's like, oh man, this is about to be fun, because what are we gonna create on now? Like, what are we gonna find and create on? This is really great. You know, so I really think that, you know, once you become reliant on infinite resources, a lot of times you only have limited access to your spirit. And the beautiful thing about having limited resources and challenges externally is now you have an opportunity to tap into the infinity that's inside of you. And one thing I love too is, like, my whole process is treating everybody that I encounter like a newborn. And it's like everybody sees a newborn, they're like, ah! You know, like, imagine if we did that to each other still. Like, imagine if we received each other in that way still, how different things would be. It's like, you know, by the time you get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the party is over. It's like everybody leaving the party. By the time you're like a preteen, it's like nobody's celebrating your presence, you know. And you remember, like, when you were like 4 and everybody's like, you're so cute, I love you so much, you know. And that goes. And I think that we yearn to still be received by that. I really think, like, the adult is just a concept for, like, it's just the warden or protector of that arrested child that's in all of us still. You know, so I really love the idea of, like, engaging with every person in a way in which I'm not meeting a stranger, I'm reclaiming a part of myself and also being reintroduced to a very vital part of myself. Because really it's nobody else, because all anybody does is take you to a new place within yourself. But there's only certain parts of ourselves that we accept. So we don't want to deal with people that trigger those parts of ourselves that we don't accept. But I think, like, part of that, like she said, the radical self-acceptance is us having the space to commune with those parts of ourselves that we may not accept, to reintegrate into love, to where when we integrate with, to where we interact with other people now, we're open because they're no longer a trigger. They're actually an invitation into a beautiful new space through the communication. So I think this also begins with us redefining how we see ourselves in terms of identity, because identity can be such a contracting principle to where now we limit where we go, who we talk to, what we do. And so many things outside of that lie in our growth and expansion. One last thing too, it's also like, you know, our ability to feel bliss, I feel, has a lot to do with us continuing to grow. And we live in a culture that promotes fear. And so here's the thing. We often fear what we don't know. But all of our growth lies in the unknown. We have to learn things that we don't know to expand. So it's kind of like, if we become fearful of things that we don't know, we inherently become fearful of our own growth. Because everything that allows us to be greater is something that we don't know at this point. So interacting with everybody, making eye contact with everybody, having the courage to engage with people reconnects us to those new places in ourselves that allow us to grow and therefore experience peace ultimately. Thank you.
Please give this panel another round of applause. I just want to thank you all for sharing this space with us, Everybody's on their own for dinner. There is an album release party for the D. Blair Collective downstairs. Doors are at 6 o'clock. I also wanted to know if the media team had an announcement that they wanted to make before we end. And also, if you want to get video footage of anybody on the panel that